Hello. So I think this is as good as I want to get the camera angle here, but pretty, huh? I was going to go out, I had this handlebar shadow. I got, so hope that's not too annoying, but it's a little tricky getting this camera set up at a good angle. So you can see it. I wanted you to see the tree, you know, so that's good. It is October. My brother's birthday was Saturday. That's 13th, 14th. It's the 15th, so it's Tuesday. It's usually a Wednesday when we do these, right? And it's cold out, though I'm sitting in the sun, so I probably don't need this. But since I had it on, I wanted to show it to you. MU. Grizz. I got that when I was in Montana with the youth in June. So University of Montana. Billings, I think. I don't know. Anyway, it feels good to be warm. It's been a cold day. It's blue sky again. So I was going to go to the Northwest City Park. Thought there might be some colorful trees there, but there maybe wouldn't have been. There's a wind blowing today from the north, so this house is kind of sheltering me from that. So it was just kind of a neighborhood. I was just in Wausau visiting my mom. My aunt is up from Tennessee. Wausau is peak colors right now. I would say Eau Claire, definitely not. But it's so that's good. I got to see peak colors in Wausau. Hopefully next week we'll have peak colors in Eau Claire. But this is certainly a beautiful tree, isn't it? This one's a little past peak. I took a picture of it. It's on Jeffers Road between North Crossing and Truax. And you know, just every other block you see a beautiful tree. But it's hard to find a spot to stop and have shelter from the wind and have a place to put the camera. So hopefully this will work okay. Where you get to enjoy a beautiful. Orange is my color of the year this year. Sometimes I like the red trees or the yellow trees. I'm all about the orange this year. So what do we got? I got a few things for the chat today. Parish news, big deal this week is our healing mass. If you see this before Wednesday morning, often I have this chat after the healing mass because we have them on Wednesdays often, and I'm always geared up and excited because it's been such a beautiful mass. So anybody who would like the healing touch of Christ, come. Father Schultz will be with me assisting. So the downside of that healing mass has been that it kind of takes a long time because it's regular mass plus there's the anointing. But this year Father Schultz will be helping me, and that should make it be both meaningful and not rushed, but also not take quite so long. So it'll be at 11 o'clock. In church, of course, our healing mass. I didn't check what the readings are yet, but we'll see. Then the next week, pretty soon, I'll be lost when I no longer promote this because I've been promoting it every week for like 2 months, but this is next week, so it's a week from today, Tuesday the 22nd of October. And Stephanie Saldana, I've been in touch with her through email. It's her second to last stop. From Eau Claire, she goes to Rochester, Minnesota for a talk, and then she'll head back to Bethlehem and to be with her family. Bethlehem, by the way, I've been in touch with them. You know, say a prayer, cross your fingers, do good deeds to help, anything you can do to help, see if we can get our shipments from the Holy Land in time with our goods that we want to sell before Christmas. Should have got the order out in September. Various reasons we didn't, but the orders have been out now for a little over a week. I'm going to talk to Alfred in Jerusalem tomorrow. He's got a few questions and he'll get his order ready and send it. And in Bethlehem we have 2 people sending us things, including mostly from the L'Arche community that work with the intellectually disabled to make those Christmas crafts. So they said they'll do their very best to get them out timely so we can get them in time to sell. But I read an article about now it's a big time of year in the West Bank, particularly, I guess all of Israel, but particularly in West Bank because they say 80,000 or 80%? Did I write it down? I don't want to be too fast and loose. 80,000. So the olive harvest in the West Bank, 100,000 Palestinian people rely on the olive harvest for a sense of prosperity, and they grow the olives, they need the oil. And I remember the first time I was there, or the time I was there in August, I was able to be there for 3 months, as I talk about a lot of my sabbatical 5 years ago. Anyway, Olive trees are all over the place. It's a native tree. It's an indigenous tree. They love it. They don't worship the olive tree, but you see it in a lot of art. It's a life-sustaining. Doesn't need a lot of water, so it thrives there. And you know, they mainly make the oil with it. They also eat a lot of olives, they wait till it rains because it's like it doesn't rain at all summer, and then in October. It's when it might start to rain. By November, you're kind of into the rainy season. So they wait for the first rains, and then it's like, well, let's go get the olives. Let's harvest the olives. And part of it is practical. I think it rains. It washes some of the dust off the olives, so it cleans them a little bit. Maybe the storms blow the branches around a little bit, and so they maybe they drop naturally. But it's time for the harvest after the rain season starts. And the article I read is very sad, and I've heard about this too, is that so it's not as easy to do as it used to be because of what they call the settlers, or the Israeli settlers, that do not want the Palestinians around, and there's fences. And this year a lot of Palestinians had their olives on the other side. People, they built that partition wall between the West Bank and Israel proper, and went right through people's property. And so some of their olive trees were beyond the wall, and if they had the permit, then they could go and harvest those olives. But if they didn't, they couldn't. And because of the October 7th violence and massacre the Hamas perpetrated on the people, Israelis, they revoked all those permits. So last year there was very little harvest. But even before that, there was just a lot of, I guess I'd call it harassment. So anyway, the good part of the story is, so often people would go out. It used to be the thing where the kids would go out and play, on the ground, and the wives, and they'd have a picnic, and the guys would be climbing up the trees to get the olives, and it was just really a beautiful fall ritual. Important for their livelihood, but also good family time, good cultural time. And if those places are, even though it's their land, if it's too close to an Israeli settlement where the people there are hostile, it's not all Israelis are hostile toward them, as you'll hear in a minute, but they get chased off. And indeed, in just needless destruction, did I write down how many? Last year, in 1 year, 10,000 trees were vandalized or destroyed. Just not even taking them for themselves, but just burning them, destroying them, cutting them down. 10,000 olive trees. Vandalism, violence. Makes you kind of angry, doesn't it? Righteous anger, yeah. And so anyway, and then parents are reluctant to take their children, of course, to go with them to have this good, fun family time harvesting olives, because they might be attacked while they're harvesting their olives. So they don't go. So anyway, there's this group, and I think there's actually several groups like this. This one's called Rabbis for Human Rights. So religious Jewish leaders in Israel, Rabbis for Human Rights, and they go and they help the Palestinian people harvest their olives. And because there's a group of rabbis there, and I assume dressed identifiably as Jewish, if the settlers come and they're going to harass the Palestinians picking their olives, they don't do it because the rabbis are there. So it's a great act of service, of self-sacrifice, to kind of put them in the way of violence, so violence doesn't happen. I've heard when I was there over there too, I met some volunteers. They came from Sweden or something, the ones I mentioned. I forget the name of the group. But there are places also on the West Bank. It's near Hebron, south of Bethlehem. That's really contested. There's just a lot. There's a lot of violence, and it's gone both ways. But lately, it sure seems like all the power and all the guns are on the side of the settlers who don't want the Palestinians around. Anyway, so these Palestinian children would go to school, and these settlers would block them under threat of violence. And so the kids wouldn't go to school because they couldn't. Their path was blocked. And so these volunteers from Sweden, they showed up, and they would walk the kids to school, and they'd have a clipboard with them, and they would write down any human rights violations that they witnessed. It's called Witnesses for Peace, or I forget what the name of the group was, but Can you imagine? But I thought, well, that'd be a courageous thing to do, but a beautiful thing to do with your life, to kind of help kids go to school, to help families harvest their olives without threat of violence. So may the olive harvest be abundant. And of course we benefit from that too, because we order the olive oil, so that's part of our Christmas order too. So the olive oil that comes from the West Bank. So and there's another olive oil plant we were going to go to in our last pilgrimage. We went to another olive oil place, but it's a place where there's cooperation, where Arabs and Jews together farm, so they can be together. So one of this Palestinian landowner just was talking about how grateful he was for these rabbis for human rights who helped them harvest. And he said, these Israelis who come to help us show us that we can work together, we can be together. Isn't that great? So a little olive politics and love and justice work in the West Bank. So we celebrate those who help us work together and be together, make peace. Okay, while I'm in that part of the world, I just thought this was interesting. They're building in Armenia, which I don't even know exactly where Armenia is. It's somewhere like Turkey. Maybe look it up on a map. So I'm sure it's northeast of Israel. The Armenians are among the first Christians in the Holy Land, and so the old city of Jerusalem has a Jewish quarter, a Christian quarter, a Muslim quarter, and an Armenian quarter of all things. So it's got a lot of history to it. There was incredible violence done against them in the earliest 20th century. But anyway, this one guy, I guess they call him an oligarch, who made a lot of money, probably unethically, after the Soviet Union collapsed. And he wants to build this 70-meter statue made out of phosphorescent aluminum, so it glows in the dark, on this hillside in Armenia, kind of a town in Armenia. And you'd think, oh, Christians should be happy. They get a big statue of Jesus, right? Well, the main church in Armenia doesn't want it. They don't like it. They said, from what they could tell, it looks too Catholic. It's not how they usually depict Jesus. And they have their own church. But this guy just kind of got money, and he's got the building permits. And it's on an archaeological site of a fortress that was built like 2,000 years before Jesus. So this ancient fortress on a hill, and it's a National Historic Site. And somehow the guy, I guess just money talks, got permits to build this Christ statue right on top of that, which makes the archaeologists crazy. I think they quick ran in and did as many excavations as they could before the construction started. So sometimes, it's like you think, wow, glorifying God, a huge statue of Jesus. It would be the largest statue of Jesus in the world, 70 meters, so it's like 75 yards. 3/4 of a football field tall. That's pretty big. And I guess the tallest one right now is in Poland, 52 meters, I read. Anyway, but it just shows me that you can, I don't know, you can sort of sometimes use religion for power in a way that doesn't really respect the local people. And, I don't know, it doesn't sound like it was a very popular project. I just picked that off that French newswire that I read. Hey, Parish news, huh? I mentioned the healing mass. I didn't get a lot of Parish news from the staff this week, so scrap metal. That's the big Parish news of the chat today. We have like a big dumpster in the big parking lot behind the school, and I took parts of the old dishwasher at the rectory and I threw it in there. It's great, so it saves the earth having to digest a bunch of metal that you throw in the dump. And it actually helps to reuse the metal. And twice a year, the Knights of Columbus arrange that for us. So thank them, and thank you if you can. It's like a win-win, Clean out your stuff, bring your metal in. Be good. I'm still trying to imagine this glow-in-the-dark Jesus. It sounds kind of spooky. Okay. Then I mentioned Stephanie's coming, so I guess that's good. I listened to on American media, they were having a chat. They're talking about the synod in the Vatican right now and bishops. And I never heard it put this way, but it's very interesting. It's like, because like over half the participants in the synod are bishops, which is really remarkable, though, is that almost half are lay people and women. And so in this kind of leadership role at the Vatican these 2 weeks, they're about halfway through their 2 weeks discussion on various topics and trying to gain deeper understanding from various perspectives about issues that affect people in the church. So anyway, this guy was talking about bishops, and he said, you know, the way it works, like in the church, the Pope, there's this, I think they call it a dicastery or a office of bishops, and he kind of tells them what he wants in a bishop, and then they tell the papal nuncio, the representative to a country. So the Pope tells this office of bishops, they tell the nuncio to the U.S., and then the nuncio makes sure that those are the kind of priests, pastors that get elevated to become bishop. And you know, so but anyway, he said, like in the 40s and 50s, Pius XII wanted really to expand the institution. There were a lot of Catholics in the world. We needed more. So it was like, get some really administrators that can be oversee a lot of building and the growth of the church, and that was very true in the Diocese of La Crosse, right? They built that whole college seminary. My home parish, St. Anne's, was built then. St. James was built then. It was all under this Bishop Tracy, right? And he was the big builder. Newman High School, where I went, I think probably Regis, maybe Regis was before that, but a lot of the Catholic high schools and so many parishes and schools were built at that time. So we needed bishops that could oversee that and plan and know how to read a blueprint, I guess, and, you know, fundraisers, all that. So really good at administrators and builders, you know. And then John the 23rd came around, called Vatican II, and he was he was only there 5 years, you know. So the next next pope they referred to was Paul VI, and he said, well, you know, it's been such a business model in the church. We need a little more pastoral bishops that can get along with the priests well and aren't, you know. So in those days before those previous bishops, priests would just get a call. It's like, you know, yeah, you're moving to Fridley, Minnesota tomorrow, you know, pack your bags, you know. And it was kind of very, kind of like a military operation. And well, then word went out from Paul VI. Let's get pastoral guys, ones who can really kind of have good relationships with the priests and the people. And so away from bricks and mortar and more to kind of people skills, right? And then things went along okay, I guess, and you know, everything has its time. And then the guest in this talk show said, and then you know, the 60s happened, and there was a lot of social upheaval, and in the Catholic Church there's this whole controversy over birth control, and a papal commission was set up to study birth control. Is it okay, or is it immoral for married Catholics? And the Pope rejected the report that said there's a case that can be made for the use of artificial birth control marriages, but the Pope said no, we're not going to accept that report. And you know, so that, and then certain bishops, that because they had this more pastoral approach, weren't necessarily happy with that declaration, and maybe even muttered or said kind of things that would dissent. Probably not a lot, but maybe there was some people, some of the bishops were not necessarily hardline right behind what the Vatican was trying to say, because they were more in touch with the people, you know, in their diocese. So anyway, so and their priests. So then John Paul II comes around, and he thought that was just terrible, that any bishop would not just be in line with exactly what the Pope said. And so then word goes out from him to the office of bishops and to the nuncios. I need priests that will back me 100%. Whatever the Vatican does, they will be behind me 100%. And that kind of makes sense. And given, you know, what we've seen sort of in the church. And then Benedict was the same way, you know, so really kind of you know, keep the line, keep the party line here. We don't need any creative thinking or pastoral exceptions to rules. Just this is the way it is, and I need bishops that will enforce it. So that's good. And then now Pope Francis rolls around, and he's still a pope, so it's hard to say. But what he said about him, I think what I gather, I'm not sure I finished the whole talk, but was that not so much. I think people see Francis, oh, he's a progressive or he's a liberal or something. And I suppose there's reasons to come to those conclusions, but it's more that he wants bishops that are in touch with the people. His big metaphor is that they have the smell of the sheep, that they know what it's like to be a lay person in the church as well. He knows he's in touch with the struggles of people, and particularly for Francis, they have compassion and concern and care for the poor, and that makes a lot of sense. So more than I need you to toe the line, it's I need you to look out for those who are hurting and make them a priority in your life. I think when he was elected, he said, we need to be a church of the poor, for the poor, something like that. So anyway, that all kind of made a lot of sense to me. So the guy on the talk show seemed to know what he was talking about. He's been studying this for some years. He's 79 years old. I think it was Thomas Rees, I think, a Jesuit priest. Anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. You might enjoy hearing a little bit of that church history and how it works with bishops. And so we have Bishop Battersby now. I saw him today. I was at a meeting in La Crosse. And, you know, that what I just said kind of was true. We were talking about parishes that can easily afford their debts and bills, and people that are, and parishes that can't, that are really poor right now. And we were talking about whether to provide debt relief or how to, you know, thinking ahead a little bit. I'm on kind of a group that manages finances and things. And he made the comment, he goes, oh, this parish is in that city, right? Well, that city had a big paper mill that closed. I imagine the parish is really hurting. I suppose the whole city is kind of depressed because they lost all those jobs. You know, so I mean that he would have the wherewithal. So he's really trying to get around and meet people and hear their stories and get a sense of the diocese, which is just awesome, isn't it? So he has that, you know, trying to get the smell of the sheep. So I think Pope Francis would be very proud of our bishop these first 6 months or so of his time with us, that he's getting out and trying to listen and has a heart for people that are struggling and parishes that are struggling. Okay, fried green tomatoes. I'm going to be making them. I won't make them probably for you by request. I suppose I could. I didn't mean to advertise it, but I just, my garden, I got all these green tomatoes on the vine, right? I mean, the hard frost, so I picked them, and some of them may ripen, but a lot of them, you slice them, dredge them in a little cornmeal, fry them in olive oil, a little mayonnaise. It's good. You know, it's not just a movie. The movie Fried Green Tomatoes, based on a novel by Fannie Flagg. But it's good. I harvested some cherry tomatoes, and I harvested this. This just might be a little touchy, but I just thought I'd bring it up because it's where'd it go? Oh my gosh, where'd it go? Oh, where'd it go? There it is. I knew I had it. My bike is very precariously standing. I'm sorry about this shadow, but what are you gonna do? I was in the shadow, so my face looked good, but the tree was all blanched out, and the tree is more beautiful than my face, needless to say. This is from my garden too. You know what this is? So I planted, I don't know why, but I planted sage last spring. I don't cook a lot with meat. If I made beef stew, I'd probably put sage in. If I made turkey stuffing, I'd probably put sage in. But I really don't make either of those things. But it really did well. I grew a ton of sage. And so I have a friend who used to enjoy exploring Native American spirituality. And he was also a youth minister in the parish where I was at. And he used to make these, and I thought, and he died in his 40s, and I know his wife, and I said, you want to make something in honor of Jay? You want to do some stuff? And so I picked all the sage up, and you squish it together, and you tie it with a rope, and you let it dry for a couple of weeks. So it's been drying now for 3 days. And then what you do is you light it, blow it out, and it smokes. And then if you do it really according to, you have an eagle feather, and you waft the eagle feather, the smoke, toward people or places or things, and it's meant to be a purifying ritual. And I remember doing that with him, and it was nice. Why maybe it's a little controversial, I don't. Sometimes so this is a sacred thing in Native American spirituality. It's a purifying thing. I just watched a movie called Resball, which I liked, on Netflix. A little bit like Hoosiers. Honestly, I didn't think it was as good as Hoosiers, which is a great classic of all time basketball movie, Gene Hackman. But it was like that. It was a good movie. And they were having trouble with their high school team, and it was on the Navajo reservation, and they wanted to kind of have a new beginning. And so someone lit a smudge, they call it a smudge stick, and lit it, and as the smoke came to them, they purified their hands in the smoke, and they put the smoke over their faces, a way to be at harmony, and to reestablish harmony and oneness and inner peace, and to cleanse their hearts and minds. So that's great. So it can be criticized, though. It's like, hey, that's their thing. We shouldn't run around and do their sacred things because we don't have the full background. And sometimes parishes, and I've done this, sometimes they'll have a Seder meal, like a Passover meal on Holy Week, and people say, hey, it's kind of a Jewish thing. We shouldn't just appropriate that and take what we like. And I understand that. I don't know if I understand that fully. All I know is that when I did this kind of smudging or something, that I thought, well, that's beautiful. That's nice. I can see why people would want to do that. Sometimes people might have heard of taking part in a sweat lodge ceremony. It's a kind of a Native American spiritual practice as well, where you go into a tent that's covered with blankets, and there's a hot rock that's been in fire for a long time, and I haven't done it. But then they put water, and it just gets super hot, and so you just sweat and sweat and sweat. And it's supposed to purify you, and you pray, and you're quiet, and a little time in the desert for purification. Anyway, I don't know. I don't. For me, I don't. If I do this, I'm not going to be feeling like I'm just playing around with something sacred. But I know that it's something that has meant a lot to people. And if I wouldn't think they would begrudge me that experience if I wanted to have a sense of renewal or inner peace, and I did this. Now, we have our own rituals, right? Should I just stick with them? Should I just have holy water, for example, from church, and that can purify me? Can I just ask you to pray for me, lay hands on me, or I lay hands on you, like we'll do? So I'm not going to bring the smudge stick to our healing mass tomorrow. We have our own prayers, a laying out of hands, and the holy oils. But if another group wanted to use oil and anoint themselves, which they do, that wouldn't bother me. So anyway, it can be a little bit of a touchy issue, but I thought it was kind of, I'll let you know how it goes if I use that. So last thing, should I do this quick? Yeah, I'll do it real quick. Nice image, right? So it's Jesus. This is one of the oldest, copy of one of the oldest remaining images of Christ, an icon. It's in St. Catherine Monastery in Sinai, Egypt. And saw the original when I was on sabbatical 5 years ago. And there was a time when all the graven images of Christ or Mary or anybody were destroyed. And by Christians, actually, they thought that it was wrong to have images of Christ. And if you do that, if you give half his face, this is an interesting one. That's kind of like the kind, gentle, merciful Christ. Okay? And then if you do this, it's more like Christ the judge, a little sterner. Christ that gets upset when innocent people are hurt. When people with power take advantage of the powerless. And then you take it off, and it just looks like Christ. So I wonder what you see when you see that. Mercy and justice. A little show and tell. I thought that'd be interesting. So anyway, I did a lot of rambling about different things. I don't know if you found anything interesting. I hope so. I know we're a little light on Parish news today. I'll see you later. Enjoy the fall colors. God bless you.